Welcome to the Taproxy Method, creating confident learners. The Taproxy Method uses a unique combination of breath work, brain-body work, gratitude, and a clay-based program to affect the neuroplasticity of the brain in students, to help strengthen their mind-body connection, help them develop a growth mindset, and most importantly, trust and confidence in themselves. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. One way to support the Creating Confident Learners podcast is to leave a 5-star review and written review anywhere you listen to it. Thanks so much, and let's get started. The brain really can rewire and create new pathways of understanding. I've watched this over 20 years of teaching. I've watched kids do things they couldn't do before and change the trajectory of their academic path. I've watched kids go from guessing letter sounds and words and not even really hearing or understanding sound patterns to knowing them. And I keep going back to how crucial the early elementary school years before the end of second grade is in terms of having proper intervention, that we can actually make a bigger impact earlier with the right types of intervention. Be sure to sign up for the Foundation course. This course is here to support you, both parents and educators. It teaches the exact foundational tools I have used with students to increase focus, ease anxiety, and help raise confidence and self-esteem so that they can succeed in all areas of their lives, including academics. It's made into bite-sized digestible pieces to help you apply these tools right away. The brain really can rewire and create new pathways of understanding. I've watched this over 20 years of teaching. I've watched it in my own life, changing thought patterns. I've watched kids do things they couldn't do before and change the trajectory of their academic path. I've watched kids go from guessing letter sounds and words and not even really hearing or understanding sound patterns to knowing them. And I keep going back to how crucial the early elementary school years before the end of second grade is in terms of having proper intervention, that we can actually make a bigger impact earlier with the right types of intervention. Really, the brain is still developing for 24 years. And if we help make stronger pathways, stronger understanding of concepts and word sounds and reading patterns earlier on, or anything that they're struggling with, especially the core subjects, mathematical understanding, number sense, we're going to make a quicker and bigger impact early on. And I often see sometimes this like wait and see type of thinking. And then all of a sudden problems in first grade turn to problems in second grade, which turns into problems in third grade, and so on. Over the years, I've almost made a mathematical formula of how long intervention is going to take with just support, after school support, a couple times a week during the school day, whichever it is. And typically, if something's been going on, for 4 years, let's say kindergarten, first, second, third, or first, second, third, fourth, it really takes about half the time. So if they've been struggling for 4 years, 2 years of support is really kind of the timeline of what it's going to take to correct and intervene if it's been going on for so long with just support. Of course, when we work intensely for a semester, a few months, a year, that timeline is going to shorten. And I know it's the end of the school year right now, at least in America, and things are slowly winding down. Kids are getting a little bit more anxious and excited for the summer, but I was just talking to one of the school teachers I work with quite closely, and it's interesting, and actually this is the perfect time to be looking at least the end of first grade. And in the professional development course she's currently taking, they talked about if a child is not reading simple 3 to 4 letter words with ease, I'm talking 20 words or more, by the end of first grade, some major intervention needs to be done. And this parallels my own experience with kids who are behind. I really think if they're still struggling with the reading at the end of second grade, this is my own notion, but first grade too, and they're just not hearing the sounds, they're not reading at grade level, it is time to intervene. And again, in my experience, the earlier that we help them, the earlier that we fill in gaps, the earlier that we give them different visual-based tools or the tools that they need. And, the container of one-on-one work to help them become confident, help them understand what they don't know and do know, and what needs to be addressed directly for them, for a child to feel confident, is really, really important at this point. I've heard lately that sometimes parents don't want to disrupt a child's routine, especially so late in the year, but sometimes it does need to be disrupted. If something is not working, we need to look a little deeper at that and what is going on. Even if everything is in place, sometimes the environment or extra support needs to be brought into the picture, sooner than later. Yes, we're finishing out the school year, but the new school year is quite a long way from now. And if there are major problems, we want to address them sooner than later. I always advocate having intervention at the earliest sign of struggle. I've seen kids with constant support, but nothing has changed. They're still struggling. They're still reading below grade level, even with weekly support. They're still not taking on any new skills independently. They're just going through the motions with that weekly support. We really do need to address the gaps in knowledge, give them different tools so that they can become independent learners. We don't want kids to have the same trajectory with support where they're just not progressing at any state. We want to create more independent learners by giving the proper intervention, the proper tools. If there isn't any positive growth or change, those are not the right tools. It's not the right intervention. And a lot of times kids need to see to believe that they can do something and to be guided to where they notice that they are improving. Sometimes we can't see any change. If we're doing something day by day by day by day, we don't see the growth until someone points it out to us. And kids need more than just someone helping them through the material, more than just guiding them through the assignment or book. They need targeted practices that address their weak points. They need processing skills and the tools that will help them process better, but also catch up to their peers. So processing tools like the balance and breath work that help with focus and stillness. Those are some of my go-to that really help them be in the body and focus more. Oftentimes, these kids need visual-based tools to help them with reading, writing, and spelling. And we also need to do some research and look at their body language. How are they approaching a task? What are they saying and doing? How are they physically forming their letters? What are their fine motor skills looking like? What is their handwriting looking like? What is their connection to their body? What is their balance? We're looking at the whole child and what they're doing. I often see kids, unfortunately, later in their school life where they have had support, but nothing has changed. Their gaps in knowledge hasn't been addressed. And, they've had support, but there hasn't been any tweaks in becoming an independent learner. And then I've had students who don't even remember they used to struggle. I have one student who I've known for a while. I met him in the middle of first grade, and reading was really, really hard for him at the time. He would scream and throw a fit around reading one sentence that spanned across 2 pages. And we put all of these visual-based tools, these other tools in place. And by a few years later, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, even earlier, he was eating books like Spy Club and just reading, and now just has solid grades in high school. He doesn't even remember struggling. We intervened earlier enough so that those struggles in his school path didn't dictate the trajectory he was on. They were mitigated, they were dealt with, they were addressed, and he started reading at grade level, he started reading more and more and more, and then, hasn't had a problem on his academic path since. Once that got solved, once that got rectified for him, it didn't affect the way he was going to approach school. He's doing really, really well. And that's why I always say the earlier we can get to a problem, at the first real sign of a major struggle, we want to fix it as soon as possible. And just going from having problems early on in his education to not at all, that's how much we can change and create strong reading pathways in the brain. And the earlier we do this, the better. The earlier we do this, the more solid those brain pathways become, right? Neurons that fire together. So they end up becoming more permanent and becoming more habitual and second nature. So essentially, I'm a private tutor. It's what I do. Really, I'm a private teacher. And it's interesting because I did a few months of business coaching at the beginning of last year, and she really wanted me personally to move away from this concept of tutoring, because apparently that word in American culture conjures up more of an image of a high schooler helping out after school, guiding, but not really fixing the root of the problem. I've always been more like the 90s movie The Cutting Edge, where the Olympian ice skater has a private tutor. It's funny because that's actually what I did in my early career worldwide, and I got to live in some really, really cool places. But it got me thinking about how there's different levels of schooling, there's different levels of tutelage, there's different levels of knowledge that people bring when they are quote unquote tutoring. So I am a private teacher. I have a master's in education. Every time I show up with a kid one-on-one, I'm bringing all of that knowledge. Sometimes with tutoring, we have just the help without the educational scaffolding that is brought through that education. That's the difference between true intervention and addressing gaps in knowledge and necessary skills and visual-based tools and processing tools for reading, writing, spelling, mathematics, gratitude, and breath work, as well, as opposed to just guiding someone through an assignment. So really, there are different variances to how intervention or how much intervention a child is getting, even when they're getting help. And there's also such a big variety and expansion in types of schooling in the last decade, which I really love. I love school, but there are so many other options now for students. And as long as they're getting the right support for them, it seems to be such a great thing. I'm always shocked, though, how much of a difference between school to school, even within the same school district, how different they really can be based on the school culture and the curriculum that is being used. I got my master's at UC San Diego in education. And one thing I remember really sticking out in my time there was how important really good teaching and teaching methods are. I was lucky. I really went to a top research teaching school. And for the first few years, when I was in the classroom, I was actually shocked. I was actually an itinerant teacher for a moment. I got to go into other teachers' classrooms and kind of observe how they set up their classroom, how they worked. And I was shocked at how sometimes some of the most important teaching methods weren't being used just because the teacher hadn't been exposed to them. I always think of the importance of think time, both in one-on-one and in the classroom setting, and letting kids have a moment to think and discuss among themselves before even answering the question directly or in the group. And, sometimes I see this, sometimes I don't. So sometimes kids need time just to process, to really understand. And, with the tools, I myself didn't know about most of these outside of the box tools that I now use until I had to go searching for better tools. Over a decade ago, I was teaching two boys who were several grade levels behind, and I had to reach to every new tool to get them up to grade level and transition them back into the school setting. And the coolest thing that I discovered about these tools that I ended up learning over the years was that these neurodivergent kids who process differently need these tools, but every single child actually benefits from them and can use them. And they can make it their own and translate to the classroom and the group experience that they're having. And I have this theory that's really starting to solidify lately, that if every kindergartner, first grader, second grader had access to just these processing tools and brain work tools, the balance work, the ball work that crosses the midline that I share in the foundation course, the nose breathing, I rave about that, both oxygenates the brain and smooths out the processing system. The tracking work that helps both the left and right hemisphere communicate. Symbol mastery with clay using that brain-body connection. Remember, the brain and body learn together. They learn through repetition together. The spell reading, the sweep reading, we could help so many children earlier and maybe even bypass any of the learning and processing problems for a larger percent of kids who would otherwise struggle. Just yesterday, one of my kids who has trouble with focusing, he was truly out of it, not processing. He's been with me a while, and we did some brain work of spell reading and sweep reading, and he was making a huge percentage of errors, like more than normal, like spelling out had, but then saying dad, or the word number for remember. And I've never seen him do this before at this high of a frequency. So we realigned his focus, that feeling of focus in the body, and bringing his mind and attention to see what his eyes were seeing. And when he went to read afterwards, it was actually smoother than normal because we course corrected with brain work beforehand. And he really, was focused and read more than he normally does in the time frame that we do. And this was making me think about if we could give all the tools beforehand in the earlier elementary years and intervene earlier with tools that really support a child's processing and gaps in knowledge, not just holding their hand through the curriculum every week where they aren't progressing and they're just having help in that time every week, but truly, truly embodying and taking ownership of their learning, what a difference that can make in their academic trajectory and their academic progress in the long run. Be sure to sign up for the foundation course. This course is here to support you. It teaches the exact foundational tools I have used with students to ease anxiety and help raise confidence and self-esteem so that they can succeed in all areas of their lives, including academics. It's available as a one-time purchase or as an ongoing monthly subscription with extra group support and monthly live stream. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter to stay in contact. Keep up with the Creating Confident Learners community on Instagram and Facebook at Creating Confident Learners. Have a blessed day and aloha.